Hello everybody, this is David Blair, the Crosshairs Trader. Thank you for taking a few minutes of your time as I discuss weekly charts that us Crosshairs traders are looking at in order to determine whether or not we will soon have a trade on our daily chart. Now before I get to these weekly charts that are possibly giving us a high probability trade, I want to discuss a few factors that we need to keep in mind as we look at these bigger charts. First of all, we're right in the midst of earnings seasons. So even if we have a signal on the weekly chart, we need to be cognizant of the fact that over the next few days to weeks, a stock we're determining to trade could be getting ready to go through earnings. We do not trade through earnings. We believe it's too much gambling and speculation. So we step aside as the stock goes through their earnings announcement. So you need to make sure of the date of their earnings and not jump ahead of that. Second of all, we need to understand that a weekly chart signal can last days to weeks. Okay, and potentially give us a trade over the next few days to weeks. So if there is a signal on the weekly chart firing right now, that usually means there's already been a big move on the daily chart. So we need to wait for some type of rest or pullback in order to enter the trade. Then third, we need to make sure that the general market is agreeing with our individual weekly and daily stock charts. So let's take a look at what's going on in the general market first to get a better understanding of what we're waiting on when we look at our weekly and daily chart combinations. So first of all, let's take a look at the S&P futures. We look at the S&P and the NASDAQ futures to give us a good read on general market conditions, whether we're trending, whether we're consolidating, whether there's support and resistance to be aware of, those types of things. So right now, here in the middle of July, we are having a market that is experiencing a lot of sideways movement. We're looking at sideways movement within the last few days. And you can see that here, red, green, red, green, red. A lot of wicks. We're actually right in between a bigger consolidation that has been going on since March. So we have our large consolidation, we have a smaller consolidation within this consolidation, and it all revolves right here around the 50 period moving average and another intermediate moving average converging together. We're actually right in between the highs and the lows for this larger consolidation. So this area right here is what we're watching right now. If we can find stability and support here and begin to move higher, then a lot of these stocks that we're looking at will move with it, and we can trade them based on the daily chart that will be agreeing with the weekly. Now, if we stabilize here simply to move down, then we can start looking at several of our potential downside trades. See, we got a couple of things going on here. If you look at past patterns, and that's all technical analysis is, you can see a couple of things. One, we're in between here, okay? We're at a moving average that could be either support or resistance. But the other thing too is we've had these nice moves that could be the pullback for the next move up. Okay. But the other side of the story is it could simply be the move up to go back down. And what I mean by that is we had this move here back at the end of April to the end of May. We came down to the 50, tried to find support and move higher only to reverse, and move down. Well, we're right back at that same point again. So are we going to continue to move down, and this 50 period moving average here become resistance as it did here? Or are we going to stabilize and move up? So there's a couple of different things going on here. Bulls and the bears are going to fight it out here. And we're going to have to find out over the next few days. And I believe it will happen in the next few days. We will find out in which direction we're going to have our next big move. Okay? So let's remember these three things. Earnings. We're in earnings season, so we need to make sure that we know when earnings are for a particular stock that we're considering to trade. Second of all, we need to make sure that the general market is giving us an indication of either bullishness or bearishness, and that way we can trade the individual stocks in that direction. And third, we need to make sure that if we're looking at the daily chart, that it's not overextended one way or the other, that it's setting up, resting for the next possible move. So let's take a look at a few of these. Okay, us Crosshairs traders have a couple of dozen or so that we can look at, but let's take a look at a few just to give you an idea of what we look at. Okay, gold. Now when we look at our weekly chart down here at the bottom, daily at the top, you can see that our weekly chart's giving us another weekly signal, a DCH. Doesn't have to give us a signal, but that is pretty strong. A DCH tells us that the trade, a potential trade, can set up on the daily chart for weeks and months going forward. So we had a DCH back at the beginning of the year, gave us a couple of gold trades on our daily chart, and now we're getting another DCH, which tells us that we could have some more potential trades. And you can see here we had a couple of trades back at the end of March, early April, after this DCH fired on the weekly. Now we got another one. We got our first signal here, our intraday crosshair. Now what we're doing is we're waiting, because we've had this extended move, we're waiting for it to rest and then possibly give us another move to agree with that weekly chart. Okay, gold can move in an opposite direction of the general market, so keep that in mind. As it rests, whether the market goes up or down, gold is one of the go its own way. Okay. Now, how about IAU? It's the same thing. Gold. iShares Gold Trust. Same signal here on the weekly. Same signal on the daily. Now we're waiting, because it's already had this move. Now we're waiting on IAU to rest and then give us another trending move, kind of like it did here. It went up, rested, then gave us the next move. That's what we're waiting on. Okay, let's take a look at another weekly chart. DTV. Again, check earnings on these. DTV, Direct TV Group, has had, again, several DCHs. You see, these can last for months. Another DCH, and now a third one. We look at our daily chart. Here's our support from the weekly chart. So DTV is doing exactly what we want it to do after a big run. It's coming back and resting, and then will possibly give us another trade. Again, look at earnings, depends on the general market. We're waiting on it to pull back. If the general market can continue to pull back some, these can rest a little bit more and then continue higher. And you can see where we had some other itches on that last DCH. Okay. How about Halliburton? HAL. Halliburton has broken out of a long range, and you can see it's back up to its highs from July of 08. So it's broken out of that area. Now what we're doing on the daily chart is we're waiting. After it's broken out, we're waiting on it to potentially give us a signal right in here to continue higher. Okay? How about ATW? Same thing. DCH on the weekly here. Trying to break out. Once it does that here, then we could have a potential long trade. And then one more, and we'll look at a down trade. Amazon, AMZN. DCH on the weekly, you can see that here. We've had a couple of them. We had an itch here to go along with this one. Now we've got another DCH, and we're waiting on another signal on Amazon. Okay. Let's take a look at a couple of down ones just to give you an idea if the market starts rolling over. Not only can we trade an ETF such as a SPY or diamonds, but we've got individual stocks to trade. And you can see, same as the upside, here's a DCH. Now we're waiting on YGE after this first itch to pause in here and then give us another trade. And then one more, KBH. Surprise, surprise, a home builder. Here we go. DCH on the weekly. Now we're waiting after this itch for another one to fire to give us another potential down trade. So that's what we look for on the weekly charts. We get a signal on the weekly, or the weekly could simply be trending, and then we get a signal on the daily. And we just want to make sure that after an extended run that weekly chart reveals, we want the daily chart to rest. We want to make sure when earnings are, and we want to make sure we're on the right side of the general market. Very simple stuff. It works. It's worked since the beginning of the stock market, and it will continue to work. We simply trade strength in a strong market, weakness in a weak market. And we look for our signals to correspond on both the weekly and the daily chart. If you've got any questions or comments, please contact me at david@thecrosshairstrader.com. Love to have you read my free blog, thecrosshairstrader.com. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.